This is Malaika Adero, an editor at Atria Books, here with the New York Times and Essence best-selling author, Zane. Hi, Zane. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good, good. I want to talk about Zane Presents Succulent, Chocolate Flavor 2, the eroticanoir.com anthology. And actually, this is the third published book in the Flavor series for you, and about the half-dozenth anthology. We know you are a hugely popular novelist in your own right, but your readers also love these anthologies that you do, including other writers. So tell me, what was your thinking in bringing together other writers to present along with your work?
Well, from the very beginning, it was my goal to try to give exposure to other writers, particularly erotica writers. And when I first started eroticanoir.com back in 1999, it was really designed not only to be a place for me to post my own writings, but also to have a place to post the writings of others, because I realized there was a need for that, and there really was not at that time an online venue for that. So with the books is really taking it off of the site and onto the pages. The majority of the writers in the Flavor collection are writers who have posted on my site for years, and also people who are not so much well known in their own right, like they try to do with a lot of anthologies, but those who really just love to write erotica, and it shows because the stories are really, really hot.
Well, tell us a little bit about who these writers are. I mean, do you have a sense of the range of ages, their backgrounds?
Well, actually, the writers in the anthologies range in age from, I know the youngest is 18, and I think we go up as far as into the 70s. They are both men and women of all races that are included in the books, even though they're geared towards, like caramel flavors, Latino-based, and chocolate flavor is African-American-based. There are writers of all races in the book, all walks of life, including Rachel Kramer-Bussell, who's actually the editor of Penthouse Letters, and all the way down to college students. So it really varies.
You talked about them, the writers, being from a range of ethnicities and that kind of thing. Talk a little bit about the organization of the anthologies. I know that you sometimes organize them stories for men, stories for women. What was the thinking behind that?
Well, I have done them differently. In one of the books in the original Chocolate Flavor, I had a male section and a female section, whereas in Chocolate Flavor 2, they're all mixed in together. And it really depends on how it all turns out in the end after I've gone through the submission process, which is always a huge submission process, and picked out how many stories and what stories they're going to be, and see how it kind of evens out between male and female. And then I try to put the stories in an order which will keep the reader engrossed in the book from story to story and make it run very smoothly. So it really does vary.
Now, as an editor of these books, do you work with the authors, let's say the ones who are not as experienced as others? Do you give them tips?
Yes, I do.
Tell us a little bit about that. What kinds of advice do you give these emerging writers in this category?
Well, actually, interestingly enough, in the first Chocolate Flavor, the very first story that ended up being in there, the young lady had befriended me online quite before then and submitted the story, which to me was just straight sex. And I went back to her and I told her, I said, well, why, it was about two people who hadn't seen each other in 5 years. And, they were just, the way she wrote it, it's like we hadn't seen each other in 5 years, and then they just went straight to having sex. So I told her, I said, I want to see a real story, and asked for her to tell us why these people hadn't seen each other in 5 years. Why should we care who these people are and that they're having sex? And she came back with such an incredible story that I made it the first in the Chocolate Flavor, because I wanted her to understand, at least in my opinion, what erotica is truly about, and that is not just sex, but an actual storyline with character development where people are concerned and drawn into the characters.
That makes a good point about why you are the queen of erotica and so popular with people. People wonder how you can be so prolific and write so often in so many scenarios. So what are your inspirations for coming up with story after story?
Well, for me, I just love life, and I love the whole concept of sensuality and putting the two of them together. I've always had an extremely vivid imagination, and I've always loved to read, and all of that is just a combination that combines into what I up with my books. But all of my books, I definitely have a purpose behind what it is that I'm trying to do, and a very important point that I'm trying to get across that I feel weighs heavily on certain things that are currently going on in society.
Let's talk a little bit about the packaging of the book. One of the things that I enjoy about working with you as an editor, and that my colleagues enjoy as well, is our opportunity to be creative along with you in the book covers and all, but you have a lot of influence in what we do. So what's kind of your vision and philosophy about the way the books look?
Well, I like for my books to obviously be very sexy, but also be very classy and not. I see a lot of book covers that are borderline on raunchy. So I like for them to be very, very, like, almost breathtakingly beautiful, and that is the first thing everybody always says, oh, I just love your cover.
Yes.
And I like for it, of course, to tie into the book, the material inside the book in some way. You know, with Succulent, it's great with the woman eating the chocolate pudding on the front and the strawberry on the back. And it's very, sexy.
Right. And sensual, as you say, because it evokes all the senses, taste and texture and smell and, everything else you can imagine, even the title, Succulent.
Right.
Yeah. Is there any other statement you'd like to say to your readers about the Flavor series, Succulent in particular, or the whole series as a whole?
Well, I just wanted to say to my readers, that I definitely appreciate their support. I've done several book signings already and, sold out of the books just about everywhere I went, and I just really appreciate, them continuing to support my efforts and the efforts of the other writers, that participate in these anthologies. I hope that they will email me and let me know their thoughts. And I'm just very excited, as always, about having this book out and awaiting everyone's reaction.
Now, I know that you have some projects, television and film projects being launched. Are we going to see any of the stories in Succulent and the other Flavor series on the small screen or the big screen?
Not at this time, but that's a very good possibility in the near future. I am the main character on Zane Sex Chronicles, which premieres in May on Cinemax, actually works for Flavor Cosmetics. So I'm really putting that whole Flavor thing out there. I just love that name. And also Addicted will be in movie theaters later this year from Lionsgate. And lastly, I just agreed to do the first 5-day-a-week soap opera for Black Entertainment Television based on my book Afterburn, which will premiere this fall.